didn't think he would leave me over something like this. Now he won't come back.
Hey Reddit, longtime lurker here, but this is actually my first time posting. My name is Nina, and I'm 27 years old. My boyfriend's name is Sean, and he's 26. We've been together for about 3 years now, and our relationship has been a huge part of my life. We met back in college, and from the moment we crossed paths, there was something undeniable between us. We clicked instantly, but life had other plans. We were both incredibly busy with our studies, trying to make something of ourselves, haha, and neither of us was really in a place where we could fully commit to a relationship at the time. We had other priorities, careers to build, goals to achieve, so despite our connection, we went our separate ways after graduation. But about a year after we both left college, fate brought us back together. We ran into each other at a mutual friend's party, and it was like no time had passed. All those feelings that had been pushed aside came rushing back, and this time, there was nothing holding us back. We started dating, and it wasn't long before we were inseparable. Sean is one of the kindest, most thoughtful people I've ever met. He's the kind of person who goes out of his way to make others feel special, and he's always been like that with me. From the beginning of our relationship, he's done everything he could to show how much he cares. Whether it's planning surprise dates, leaving sweet notes for me to find, or just being there to listen when I need to vent, Sean has always gone the extra mile. He's a true romantic, the kind of person who believes in love deeply and isn't afraid to show it. In the beginning of our relationship, everything felt perfect. We had this incredible connection that made it seem like we were meant to be. We shared the same sense of humor, had similar values, and could talk for hours about anything and everything. It felt like I had finally found the person I was supposed to be with, and for a while I really believed that nothing could ever come between us. But as time went on, life started to get in the way again. The stress of our jobs, the pressures of adult life, and my own personal issues began to weigh heavily on me. I struggled with keeping my promises, both big and small, and that's where things started to unravel, I guess. Sean remained as dedicated and caring as ever, but I could see the change in him. The doubt began to creep into his eyes, and I noticed how he'd hesitate before believing me when I said I'd do something. Even though I knew my actions were hurting him, I couldn't seem to stop myself from letting him down. I was constantly making promises and breaking them, and it gradually eroded Sean's trust, and I guess made him reconsider our future together. Early in our relationship, we had a tradition of having a date night every Friday. It was our way to unwind from the week and reconnect, something we both enjoyed and cherished. But over time, I started canceling or rescheduling these dates. Sometimes it was due to work commitments or simply because I was too exhausted. Other times, I'd forget entirely about our plans. At first, Sean was understanding, but as the cancellations became a regular occurrence, he began to feel like our time together wasn't a priority for me. He'd try to make plans to accommodate my schedule, but my repeated failures to follow through wore him down. Then, there was a particularly moment that stands out painfully in my memory, our 2-year anniversary. We had discussed it for weeks, planned a special getaway for the weekend, and Sean had even taken time off work to celebrate with me. But when the day arrived, I got caught up with work and completely forgot about our plans. I called him last minute to say I couldn't make it because I had an important meeting that I had to attend. Sean's face was a picture of disappointment when he saw me on the video call. That look, his silent hurt, and the effort he had put into making the day special stayed with me. I brushed it off at the time, convincing myself that work was a valid excuse, but I now realize that this incident was a turning point. These failures to keep my promises, especially the important ones, had a cumulative effect. The small things, like missing date nights, slowly compounded with bigger issues like forgetting our anniversary. Each broken promise eroded Sean's trust in me and made him question our future together. It wasn't just about the individual instances, but about the consistent pattern of letting him down. I could see it in his demeanor, in how he started to question my commitment and sincerity. Over time, breaking promises became a habit for me. It was like I had unintentionally pushed our relationship to the back burner, and it started to show. I kept making promises I couldn't keep, whether it was missing our date nights, forgetting plans, or being too tired to spend time together. My excuses, work, fatigue, social commitments, started to sound less convincing. I began to notice a change in Sean. He became less enthusiastic, more distant, and started to doubt my commitment. He was worried about our future and seemed to be questioning if I was fully invested in our relationship. At one point, his concerns even turned into suspicion that there might be someone else in my life. No matter how much I tried to reassure him, the repeated letdowns had already taken a toll. The last major promise I broke was the one that ultimately led to Sean confronting me. We had been talking about moving in together for about a year, but I kept postponing it for one reason or another. Each time we were supposed to go apartment hunting, I'd come up with an excuse: work, fatigue, personal issues. It seemed like every time I made a commitment, I failed to follow through, and it was starting to wear on Sean. Finally, it reached a boiling point. Sean was frustrated and hurt, and he gave me an ultimatum: either stop breaking promises or he would leave. I should have recognized the seriousness of the situation, but instead of apologizing, I became defensive. I told him he was overreacting and that a few missed plans weren't enough to end our relationship. That's when Sean really let it all out. He told me how I was a horrible person for constantly breaking promises. He brought up all the missed date nights and forgotten anniversary plans. He reminded me of my promises to communicate better, especially during arguments, but how I continued to bottle things up and shut down instead of talking to him. This left him feeling left out and unimportant. Sean pointed out that I had promised to share more about my life, my work stress, and personal issues, but I consistently failed to do so, making him feel even more isolated. Sean reminded me of how I had refused to move in with him. After about 2 years of dating, we both agreed to move in together, as it was the next step in our relationship, and even began making plans. Sean even started looking at potential apartments for them. However, I kept delaying the process, citing my busy schedule or saying I wasn't ready yet. Every time Sean brought it up, I'd push the date further, making vague promises that we'd move in soon. Sean said he eventually realized that I was avoiding the commitment, and it has made him question whether I was serious about our future together. Sean didn't stop there. He brought up a time when he was going through a tough patch at work and how I wasn't there for him emotionally. I was always too preoccupied with my own issues, even though he had always made time for me. I missed important conversations and didn't check in on him as I had promised, which made him feel like he was facing his struggles alone. This lack of support made him realize that I wasn't a reliable partner. He also mentioned how I constantly neglected family events. Sean had invited me to several family gatherings, knowing how important his family was to him. I'd promised to attend, but I would often cancel at the last minute due to work or other obligations I had forgotten. This not only disappointed him, but also made him feel embarrassed in front of his family. Over time, he began to feel that I wasn't making an effort to be part of his life, which made him question if I was truly invested in our relationship. Finally, Sean reminded me of how I had neglected our long-term plans. We used to talk about our future together, travel plans, career goals, and starting a family someday. We made lists of places we wanted to visit and things we wanted to do. However, as time went on, I became less interested in these discussions. I'd agree to plans in the moment, but later show little enthusiasm when it came time to act on them. Whether it was a planned vacation or a simple weekend getaway, my lack of follow-through made Sean feel like our dreams were slipping away, and with them, his confidence in our future. Sean didn't just stop there. It was clear he had made a thorough list of every instance where I had let him down. It felt like he was determined to drive home every point I had failed to address. He brought up how I had promised to be there for him during his serious health scare. I was supposed to be his rock, but I often canceled our plans or frequently showed up late, and I was constantly using work or personal issues as excuses. Sean told me how isolated and unsupported he felt during such a crucial time when he really needed me. He also reminded me about missing his sister's wedding and the family reunion, events I had committed to attending. I had claimed urgent work commitments and tiredness as reasons for my absence, but Sean said that it left him feeling embarrassed in front of his family, as he had already told them I would be attending. Sean then brought up the discussions we had about moving to a new city for better career opportunities. I had promised to support his career ambitions and be on board with the move, but I kept delaying the decision and eventually backed out. He didn't stop there. Sean also reminded me about how we had talked about setting up a joint savings account and budgeting for our future. I had agreed to being involved in managing our finances, but I often missed meetings and neglected to contribute to our savings. Sean reminded me of how I had promised to support him in his personal goals, like when he was training for a marathon. Despite agreeing to be his cheerleader and training partner, I frequently skipped practices and failed to attend the events. Finally, Sean talked about our mutual health goals, where we had planned to cook healthy meals together and exercise regularly. I frequently broke these promises by opting for takeout or skipping workouts. Sean said that all these incidents, though they might have seemed minor at the time, gradually chipped away at his trust in me. They led him to question whether our relationship had a solid foundation and whether we could truly build a future together. After Sean laid everything out and voiced his frustrations, he told me he wasn't going to continue running in circles with the conversation. He said he needed to step away to clear his head and get some space, and then he left. After he left, the reality of what was happening started to sink in. I tried to call him repeatedly, sending message after message, hoping for a response. I reached out through texts, voicemails, and even tried calling him from different numbers, but there was no reply. It's been days now, and he has still no contact. This behavior is so out of character for Sean. He's always been open to talking things out, even when we had disagreements. The fact that he's completely cut off communication is causing me a lot of anxiety. I'm worried about him, and I'm anxious about what this means for us. Not knowing what to do next is making me feel helpless. I want to make things right and show him that I'm committed to fixing what's broken, but I don't even know if he'll give me the chance to do so. All I can do right now is wait and hope that he'll eventually be willing to talk. But every day that goes by without hearing from him just deepens the uncertainty and fear I'm feeling. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I'm still getting a lot of negativity, and honestly, I understand why. I'm fully aware that I brought this on myself. For those of you who left positive or helpful comments, thank you, I genuinely appreciate it. So as I promised, here's an update. It didn't go quite as I'd hoped. My boyfriend finally replied to my messages and said we needed to talk. I suggested a phone call, but he wanted to meet in person. He didn't want to come over to my place, so I went to his place. We ended up having a long conversation. I kept apologizing and telling him that I now understood where he was coming from and how deeply sorry I was. I even told him I had plans to change if we could just make things work, but he told me straight up that he was done with me. I'm not kidding. He said he was completely over it. He told me he'd been patient for years, and if I hadn't changed by now, there was no way I'd change all of a sudden. I kept trying to convince him, but he was adamant. He said he was finished with us. He mentioned that he had a few things at my place and said he would call to let me know when he was coming to pick them up. I was devastated. I ended up sobbing uncontrollably and begging him to reconsider, but he just stood there, trying to comfort me while I cried. It felt like a punch to the gut. I was heartbroken and furious. How could he end things like that? 3 years together, and it felt like it all meant nothing. I left his place and haven't replied to his texts since. I guess I wanted to give him a taste of his own medicine, a little bit of what it feels like to be on the receiving end of silence. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I've seen some people trying to comfort me here, saying that my boyfriend might come to his senses and change his mind, but I honestly don't think that's going to happen. I've had my family and even some of my friends reach out to him, trying to plead my case, but he's been adamant that he's done with me. He's told them directly that no amount of begging or convincing will change his mind. In fact, he even went so far as to tell our mutual friends to stop talking about it or he'd cut them off. It's heartbreaking to hear that, especially since I thought we had a solid future together. It feels like the entire 3 years we spent together are just being thrown away because of my repeated failures to keep promises. I know I messed up. I rain-checked on plans and broke promises. Sometimes, a lot of times. But still, this feels so final. I keep telling myself, and I also know that he's going to regret this decision. I'm really struggling to accept that this might really be the end. Update. Hey Reddit, I guess this is really it. I'm starting to accept that this might truly be the end. My ex-boyfriend came over today to return the little stuff that he had at my place, and he even brought back some things I'd left at his. When he first arrived, I refused to let him leave. I was desperate and kept crying, clinging to him, begging him to stay and reconsider. Looking back, I know it was wrong of me to act that way, but when he threatened to call the cops if I didn't let him go, I realized I had no choice but to let him leave. In my frustration and pain, I cursed at him. Not my finest moment, I admit. I told him he'd regret this decision, that he'd miss me, and that he'd never find someone who loved him as much as I did. The worst part was when he actually laughed at that. He told me he never wanted to meet someone like me again. That stung more than I can say. I feel so embarrassed and angry at myself for how I acted and at him for being so cold. It's hard to believe that after everything we shared, this is how it ends. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I know many of you have been asking for updates, and honestly, I don't have much new to share. My life has been pretty miserable lately, and I'm feeling worse with each passing day. I've been struggling a lot since the breakup. I've been calling in sick to work more often than I should, and on the rare occasions I do make it in, I'm always late. I'm worried I might get written up or even fired, but at this point, I don't even know if I care. It feels like everything is falling apart, and I'm just barely holding on. I miss my ex-boyfriend so much. We had a deep connection, and I truly believed he was the one I'd spend the rest of my life with. It's so hard to grasp how everything ended so quickly. I'm now questioning everything, and I know deep down I can't really blame him for how things ended. I'm struggling to find a way to cope with all this pain and uncertainty. Update. Hey Reddit, just a quick update because I'm really angry and upset right now. As I had feared, I got fired from my job. I honestly thought I'd get a warning or maybe a write-up, not an outright dismissal. I'm completely at a loss for what to do next. I really needed this job, and now I'm not sure how I'm going to pay my bills or manage financially. I feel like I'm just floating through life, functioning on autopilot. I can barely remember what I do from day to day, and I spend most of my free time crying and missing my ex-boyfriend. Everything feels like it's falling apart, and I don't know how to pull myself together. I'm struggling to see a way forward, and I'm overwhelmed by everything that's happening. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. Sorry for not updating this month. Things have been pretty rough. I've been swamped with job hunting because I really don't want to move back in with my parents. They keep pushing me to break my lease and come home, but I'm determined to avoid that if I can. The job search has been grueling, and honestly, it feels like I'm getting nowhere. Every day is a struggle, and I'm not sure how much longer I can keep this up. If I don't find something soon, I might have no choice but to head back home. It's a last resort for me, and I'm trying everything I can to avoid it, but the pressure is really starting to get to me. I've been trying to stay focused, but the stress is overwhelming. I've lost a significant amount of weight from all the stress, and my mood is all over the place, and I feel like I'm just floating through each day, barely keeping it together. I know it's not going great, and I just wish things would turn around. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a few weeks since I last updated, and I'm sorry for the silence. I've been swamped and had to make a tough decision. I moved back in with my parents. I really didn't want to do it, but job searching was going nowhere, and it became my only option. The job market is terrible, and after hitting dead ends, I realized I had no other choice. So here I am, back at my parents' place, and it's been as bad as I feared. They've been inviting my ex over for dinner, even though they know how much it hurts me. I've heard he's moved on already and is seeing someone new. It's like a knife to the gut, and yet they keep treating him like family. They keep saying that no breakup will change their feelings towards him, and that they consider him their son, which just feels incredibly unfair. Worst of all, my ex always tries to talk to me whenever he's over, even though I do my best to ignore him. He constantly checks up on me and tries to talk, which just makes everything more awkward and embarrassing. I still have feelings for him, and I'm still struggling with the fact that I want him back. I feel guilty and regretful, and that's very hard to deal with when he's trying to make contact while I'm just trying to move on. It's like he's adding to the emotional mess I'm already dealing with, and I can't help but wish he'd just stop. Every time I try to talk to my parents about how this is affecting me, they either ignore me or shut me down. It's like they don't even hear me or care about how hard this is for me. This is exactly why I didn't want to come back here. I'm stuck in a place where I feel disregarded and hurt, and it's just making everything worse. Update. A lot of you suggested talking to my parents, which I did, even though I knew it probably wouldn't change much. I've tried discussing things with them multiple times, but it's like talking to a wall. They either ignore me, shut me out, or blame me for the breakup and say I caused it. They keep inviting my ex over for dinner, and it's incredibly awkward because I have to sit there and watch him. The other day, they even talked about inviting him and his new girlfriend over, and I had to tell them that if they did that, I would cut off all contact with them. I guess they saw I was serious because they backed off. I'm ramping up my job search as much as I can because I want to get out of here as soon as possible. I've been focusing on finding work and exploring side hustles to save up some money so I can move out quickly. I might not be around on Reddit much for a while, but this will probably be my last update unless something significant happens. I'm determined to find a job and get away from this situation before it makes my life any worse. I really appreciate all the positive comments and the DMs that checked up on me. Those were genuinely uplifting during this tough time. It's nice to know that some internet strangers out there actually care. It's been a very small silver lining in an otherwise shitty situation that is my life. As for the hate comments, honestly, I couldn't care less. They don't get to me. Hey Reddit, a first-time poster here and first time using this app, so I hope I'm doing this right. I've been stumbling upon a lot of Reddit videos on TikTok where people share their stories and get advice from the community, so I decided to give it a shot. I'm hoping to remain completely anonymous, as nobody I know uses Reddit, so this feels like a good space for me to process my feelings and hopefully get some perspective. This is a long one, so if you've got the patience, I'd really appreciate your thoughts. Before I dive into the details, let me give you some context. My name is Emma, and I'm 30 years old. I've been married to Tom, who is also 30, for about 3 years now. We met in our last year of college, dated for a few more years after that, and then got married. Overall, things have been great between us. Sure, it hasn't always been perfect, what relationship is, but I genuinely thought we had an amazing connection. Now, just to put things in perspective and not as an excuse, I need to explain a bit about my background. I've always struggled with deep-seated insecurities and paranoia about being cheated on. This stems from my past relationships. I was cheated on quite badly in a previous relationship, and even in another one before that. So you can imagine, these experiences left me with a lot of unresolved trauma and fear about infidelity. When I met Tom, I was open about my past and these issues. He was incredibly understanding and supportive. To help ease my anxieties, he's always gone out of his way to make me feel secure. He's been transparent with his phone, passwords, and whereabouts. Basically, he's done everything he can to build and maintain my trust. Now, despite all of Tom's efforts, my insecurities have been a major problem in our relationship, even though I've always tried to fight them. I've struggled with constant doubt and irrational fears that have started to severely impact our marriage. Things took a turn for the worse when Tom started a new job. At first, the changes seemed minor. Tom began working late more often, which he explained as part of the demands of his new managerial role. He had more responsibilities, and as he put it, the nature of his job required extra hours. His phone, which he used to put down more often, was now constantly in his hand. He'd receive calls and texts during odd hours, and sometimes he'd need to take work calls even late into the evening. In hindsight, many of these changes seem so insignificant, but at the time, they set off alarm bells in my mind. The more I noticed these things, the more my anxiety grew. I found myself scrutinizing every text message he received, and every call he took. Even though Tom had always been open about his phone and his whereabouts, I started to question his every move. My mind began to race with thoughts of betrayal. I didn't have any concrete evidence, just gut feelings and irrational thoughts that seemed to consume me. I would imagine scenarios where Tom was cheating, despite the fact that he had always been nothing but honest and loving. The constant worry and suspicion began to chip away at my trust. I kept feeling that something was off. Even though deep down I knew I had no real reason to doubt him, my insecurities started to dominate my thoughts and my behavior toward Tom. I began to distance myself from him, even though he was only trying to support me. I began voicing my concerns to Tom, often starting with what I thought were reasonable questions, but my tone would then quickly shifted to one of accusation. It started with comments like, "You're always on your phone. Who are you talking to?" Or, "You're working late again. Are you seeing someone else?" Each time, Tom looked confused and hurt by these accusations, but he always did his best to reassure me. He explained his extended work hours, allowed me to see his phone whenever I asked, and even introduced me to the colleagues he was working with. Despite his constant reassurances, my doubts didn't go away. My paranoia only grew stronger. I started to obsessively check Tom's phone whenever he wasn't around, scrutinizing his social media accounts, and even going through his email. I was driven by the desperate hope of finding something, anything, that could confirm my fears. But despite my constant searching, I found nothing. It felt like I was on a never-ending chase for proof of cheating, only to come up empty-handed every single time. I overreacted to the smallest things. When Tom bought new clothes, I accused him of buying them to impress someone else, even though he had already explained that the new wardrobe was for a professional event. When he mentioned attending a work dinner with a mixed-gender group, I was convinced he was cheating on me. I expressed my suspicions to our friends, hoping they would back me up, but they mostly reassured me and dismissed my concerns as baseless. Even something as simple as Tom going on a work trip became fodder for my accusations. I convinced myself that the trip was a cover for an affair, despite his repeated reassurances and explanations. I even called his family and my friends to rant about my suspicions, creating drama and making everyone aware of my doubts, even though there was no real evidence. Things came to a head one evening when Tom came home late after a business dinner. I had been stewing all night, letting my suspicions and insecurities fester, and when he finally walked through the door, I was ready to explode. I accused him of being with someone else, of lying to me, and of not caring about our marriage. I unleashed a torrent of hurtful things that I deeply regret now. I told him he was a liar and that he was intentionally hurting me. Tom was devastated by my accusations. He tried to explain himself again, but this time he was angry and hurt. He told me that my constant accusations and lack of trust were destroying our marriage. He said he couldn't keep living under the constant scrutiny and suspicion. But instead of listening, I brushed off his concerns, insisting he was just trying to deflect from the truth. Tom ignored me and went to bed, and a week later, he packed a bag and left. He said he needed time away to think, but it felt like he was closing the door on our marriage. He moved in with a friend, and since then, we've barely spoken. It all happened so suddenly. I've tried calling and texting, but he's always distant and unresponsive. When he does reply, it's either with silence or with safe, polite responses. I don't know what to do now. I regret my actions so much. I want my husband to come back home, but I don't know how to fix things. My paranoia and constant doubts pushed him away, and now I'm left with the painful realization of what I've done. I wish I could take back the hurtful things I said and somehow make things right, but it feels like it might be too late. Update. Hey Reddit, I want to start by saying thank you for the responses I received. I know I got flamed pretty hard, and I appreciate all the advice you gave me. Many of you suggested that I get therapy, and I hear you. I know now that I need it, and I'm planning to start going. I just didn't realize how much I needed it until now, and I'm finally ready to take that step. As for the update, things have been a bit confusing and overwhelming. I reached out to Tom, and we finally talked after not speaking for about a week and a few days. I was relieved and hopeful that we could work things out, but I ended up blowing it. During our conversation, Tom said he was sorry for the distance but needed time to calm down. He couldn't understand why I was so suspicious, and I told him he was being irrational. That set him off, and he started recounting all the times I'd embarrassed him in front of family and friends and made baseless accusations. He reminded me of the time I saw a text from a female colleague wishing him good luck on a project, and I accused him of flirting with her. I even brought it up during a family gathering, making things awkward. Then there was the incident when Tom started a new exercise routine. I accused him of meeting someone at the gym and even confronted his personal trainer about it. Tom said he felt humiliated by my behavior. He mentioned another instance when he received some praise from a female superior, and I accused him of seeking validation. I brought this up during a holiday dinner, which caused an uncomfortable conversation among our relatives. Tom also brought up how I went through his email without permission and confronted him about a friendly email from a female coworker at a family event, which made things very awkward. There were other examples too. Tom recalled how I accused him of using a meeting with a potential client as a cover for cheating. He also talked about a call from an unknown number that turned out to be a wrong number, but I accused him of hiding something and shared my suspicions with my family. He mentioned how I once saw him like a friend's vacation photos and accused him of trying to start a new relationship. And he reminded me of the time he lost his wallet and I accused him of hiding his wallet to cover up an affair. With each example Tom brought up, I felt more numb and didn't know how to respond. He said I needed to do some serious soul searching because I was going crazy and didn't even realize it. He made it clear that he was done with me unless I stopped with the accusations. He told me that he was as transparent as he could be and didn't know what else I needed. I apologized and agreed to change. He said he needed more time at his friend's place but would try coming back soon. I'm so happy because I've really missed him. I know I have a lot of work to do on myself, but I'm really hopeful that things can get better. Thank you all for the advice and support. Update. Hello, Reddit. I didn't think I'd be updating here again, especially not under these circumstances. I really thought things were moving towards resolution with my husband, but I was wrong. A few days ago, Tom and I were on a phone call, and he dropped a bombshell. He told me that he didn't really want to come home anymore. I was completely shocked and immediately asked him why. Tom explained that he'd spent a lot of time thinking over the past few days and realized he didn't believe I could change. He said that my issues had been ongoing for years, and the idea of me suddenly changing in just a few weeks was unrealistic. He stressed that I needed therapy, and I told him through my tears that I was willing to start therapy if he just came home. But he said no. He reminded me of how much I had humiliated him, how my jealousy, paranoia, and insecurity had even led him to quit his last 2 jobs. He said he couldn't live like this anymore, and he couldn't continue with me under these conditions. Tom told me that the thought of coming back home to me actually scared him. He said he had genuinely tried his best, but he was at his wit's end. He admitted that this realization came to him when he couldn't shake the fear of returning home. I was devastated, and I ended up crying and hanging up on him. He tried calling me back a few times, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. I was too afraid of hearing him mention divorce. I feel lost and don't know what to do. I don't want to call him or talk to him anymore because I'm terrified he'll bring up divorce. If he doesn't want to come back home, what's left? The only thing left seems to be the possibility of him wanting a divorce. I'm scared and I don't know how to handle this. I feel paralyzed by fear and uncertainty about the future. What do I do next? How can I fix this if he's already made up his mind? Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I know a lot of you have been asking for an update, but honestly, there's not much to share. Not much has happened, apart from the fact that I feel utterly alone. Many of you keep suggesting therapy, and I really want to go, but right now, it's just not an option unless I look into free therapy services. The reality is, I don't think I'll be able to afford it as much as I would like to. I need to secure and keep my savings, especially with everything that's happening. My husband seems serious about not coming back home, and if he doesn't, what's left? The only thing left is the looming possibility of him wanting a divorce, and if that happens, I'm screwed. I'll probably have to pay the rent and bills on my own, and I'd rather keep my savings for that so I don't end up stranded. I feel like I'm in a really dark place right now. I did reach out to my family and friends, hoping for some support, but even though they tried to console me lightly, they also made it clear that they think I deserve this. All of them. It's like they're not even on my side, and I'm only now fully realizing how bad I must have been. The extent of how irrational I've been is just now hitting me, and it's hard to come to terms with it. I feel utterly alone, like no one is on my side. Yes, I know what I did was wrong, and I know how bad it was, but still it hurts that no one is really supporting me through this. I'm honestly so tired already. Even showing up for work is hard. It's like every part of my life is falling apart, and I don't know how to stop it. I don't know what to do anymore. Everything feels like it's spiraling out of control, and I don't know how to pick up the pieces. I'm just trying to get through each day, but it's hard when you feel like you're facing everything alone. Update. Hey, Reddit, a bit of an update here. So, as I feared, my husband didn't change his mind and he wants a divorce. He's serious about it, and there's no turning back now. I finally mustered up the courage to text him back, and we talked about a lot of things. Honestly, it was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. I cried a lot, trying to hold on to any sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could still work things out. I asked him if there was still any chance for us, if there was any way we could save our marriage, but he was firm. He said no, and that he wanted a divorce. Hearing those words was like a punch to the gut. I don't think I've fully come to terms with it yet. It still feels unreal, like I'm stuck in some sort of nightmare that I keep hoping I'll wake up from. But I know deep down that this is my reality now. For everyone who's been DMing me and asking for an update, well, there's your update. My marriage is over, and I don't know what to do with myself. I feel lost, and everything feels so final. I'm trying to process everything, but it's so hard to wrap my head around the fact that the person I thought I'd spend my life with is no longer in it. I guess I just have to take it one day at a time, but right now, it feels like I'm drowning in a sea of emotions, and I can't seem to find my way to the surface. This isn't where I expected to be, and I'm not sure how to move forward from here. Update. Hey Reddit, mini update here. So today was the day my husband came to pack his stuff. I wasn't home when it happened, though. He reached out earlier to let me know he'd be coming by to grab his things, and I made the deliberate choice to leave the house before he arrived. I told him I hadn't changed the combination code so he could easily get into the house even if I wasn't there. I also told him I was busy and wouldn't be around to watch him pack. That was a complete lie. I wasn't busy at all. In fact, I had the day off. Instead of staying home, I got in my car and drove around aimlessly. I ended up getting some coffee, but it didn't really help. I parked somewhere quiet, and that's when it all hit me. I sat in my car and cried for what felt like hours. The tears just wouldn't stop. It's like all the emotions I've been holding back came rushing out at once. Eventually, I pulled myself together and whipped out my phone to make this update. I guess I needed a distraction, something to take my mind off everything, even if just for a moment. When I told him I wouldn't be home, he sounded worried over the phone, like he wasn't sure if I was okay. But honestly, I couldn't care less about how he feels right now. He's the one choosing to leave me. He's the one who decided to come and pack up his life, to divorce me, to end everything we had. This is all on him, right? I keep telling myself that to make the pain more bearable, but deep down, I know it's not that simple. I'm angry, heartbroken, and lost all at the same time. I know I've made mistakes, but it doesn't make this any easier to accept. Watching him walk away, even if I wasn't there to physically see it, feels like the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. And the worst part is, I can't help but feel like I'm the one being abandoned, left behind to pick up the pieces of a life that no longer exists. I don't know what the next steps are from here. I don't know how to move on, or even if I'm ready to. Right now, I just feel numb. Everything is so overwhelming, and the future feels so uncertain. I guess I'm just taking it one breath at a time, hoping that eventually, things will start to make sense again. Update. Hey Reddit, I don't have much of an update today, but I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude. To everyone who reached out to check on me, offered advice, or simply took the time to send some kind words, thank you. Seriously, it means the world to me right now. I'm in such a difficult place, and knowing that there are internet strangers out there who care enough to offer support has been a real lifeline. Now, as for the hate comments, those of you who felt the need to kick me when I'm already down, you can all go fuck yourselves. I get it, okay? I was wrong. I made mistakes and I'm owning up to them. But what I don't need right now is a bunch of miserable, frustrated people piling on, trying to make me feel even worse. Yes, I know what I did. Yes, I know I hurt someone I loved. And yes, I'm trying to fix it. But there's a difference between constructive criticism and just being cruel, and some of you crossed that line. The truth is, I should have never gotten into another relationship when I hadn't even healed from the trauma of my past ones. I let that unhealed trauma fester inside me, and eventually, it built up to the point where it destroyed one of the things I loved most, my marriage. I see that now, and I'm doing everything I can to pick up the pieces and work on myself. But it's a process, and it's going to take time. On a more positive note, my mom is here with me now. She was really worried after talking to me on the phone, said I didn't sound so good, so she decided to come over and stay for a few weeks. Even though she agrees that my husband was in the right, she's still my mom, and she cares about me. I think she could tell how much I was struggling, and honestly, I'm really grateful to have her here. Just having someone around who loves me, who's here to support me, is making a huge difference. She's been helping me around the house and keeping me company so I don't feel so alone, and it's been a real comfort. Right now, I'm just trying to take things day by day. I know there's a lot of work I need to do on myself, and I'm committed to doing it. So again, thank you to everyone who's shown me some kindness during this really tough time. It means more to me than I can say. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and I just wanted to check in and let you all know what's been going on. I know I've been kind of radio silent, which is a bit unusual for me, but honestly, there hasn't been much to update on. Until now, that is. So here it is. I got served. Yep, the papers came. I thought I would have a complete meltdown, but surprisingly, I didn't. I didn't even feel like crying at first. I guess I've been preparing myself for this moment, so when it finally happened, I was almost numb. Of course, the tears did come later, but in that moment, I just felt kind of hollow. Afterwards, my mom and dad showed up at my place. They drove 3 hours just to be with me, bless their hearts. I didn't even ask them to come, but they must have sensed that I needed them. We ended up having a movie night, just the 3 of us. It was comforting in a way I can't really describe. For a little while, it felt like I was a kid again, back when everything was simpler and the weight of the world wasn't constantly pressing down on my shoulders. I know this isn't the most dramatic update, but I wanted to share it with you all. I've been feeling pretty over everything lately, like I just want to fast forward through this whole nightmare, but at the same time, I know that's not possible. I'm stuck living it day by day, and some days are harder than others. But I also know that a lot of you have been following my posts and supporting me, and I owe it to you to keep you in the loop. Right now, I'm just trying to take things one step at a time. I don't know what the future holds, and honestly, that scares me. But I'm trying to stay strong and keep moving forward, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. I don't know when I'll have something worth updating on again, but I promise I'll keep you posted. For now, I'm just trying to find my footing. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I remember promising to update when I had something worth sharing, and here I am, keeping that promise. So here's the latest. The divorce is finalized. It's done. That's pretty much the only update I have right now. The whole process was surprisingly quick and straightforward. We didn't have any big things to split. No property, no kids, no complicated financial ties. The apartment we shared? My ex-husband had already reached out to the landlord to have his name taken off the lease, so that was a non-issue. It was all very cut and dry. No dramatic court battles, no lengthy negotiations, just a clean break. Everyone just went their own way. I know this probably isn't the update some of you were hoping for. There's no big twist, no shocking turn of events. The divorce is finalized, and that's it. Now I'm left to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move on with my life. I won't lie, this isn't easy. I miss my husband every day. Some days are harder than others, and there are moments when it hits me like a ton of bricks. The realization that this is my new life, that the person I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with is now just a chapter in my past. It's tough. But I know I have no choice but to keep moving forward. Life doesn't pause for heartbreak. I want to thank everyone who has supported me through this. Your kindness, advice, and encouragement have meant so much to me. I didn't expect to find so much empathy and understanding from strangers on the internet, but I did, and I'm grateful. As for the hate comments and DMs, well, I guess I should say thank you for those too. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to leave a hateful message or to send me a nasty DM. It shows that you care enough to engage, even if it's in a negative way. And while it stings, it's also a reminder that I'm human, that I've made mistakes, and that not everyone will be on my side. But that's okay. I'm learning to accept that and move on. So that's where I'm at right now. The divorce is over, and now I have to focus on rebuilding my life. Thank you again to everyone who's been there for me, whether with support or criticism. It all means something in the end.